Marinaro, the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal talk. CF Montreal coming off a 3-0 loss to the Union in Philadelphia. A starting lineup that looked like they were resting some of their players for the Canadian Championship final, which takes place Wednesday night in Vancouver. The coach was asked about the number 10 position. The coach was asked about a young player. We'll discuss who impressed on Saturday night and who didn't, who should get the start on Wednesday of the players who started the game, if anyone. That and so much more. Myself and Jeremy Filosa of 98.5 FM and EMFC.zo coming up right here on the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. CF Montreal Talk.
Here's the chance. Here's the chance. They've got the goal. Absolutely incredible. Cameron Porter delivers the goal to send Montreal Impact into the CONCACAF Champions League semi-final.
The sickest CF Montreal podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, welcome. It is the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk. I bring in Jeremy Filosa. Jeremy, how are you?
Good yourself, Tony.
Very, very good. Thank you very much. Jeremy, I take a look at the starting lineup against Philadelphia, and I knew this one was going to be difficult. And after seeing the starting lineup, I said, yeah, this one's not going to go very well, but we'll discuss it. James Pantemis got the start in goal after 11 weeks off due to injury. His first game back in MLS action, that is. A three-man back line with Campbell in instead of Camacho, who was hurt last game. Corbo at right center back instead of normally left center back. Thorkelson, who was in Corbo's spot usually, and Waterman was not in the lineup. Iliadis and Saliba played as the two CDMs instead of Wanyama and Chouanier. Zachary Broguillard, who played as your right wing back instead of Aaron Herrera. Lapalainen was your left wing back instead of Lassiter. They played with two 10s, Hamdi and Duke, and they played in behind Ibrahim, who was the lone striker. A 3-4-2-1, Jeremy, with Ketterer, Waterman, Herrera, Miljevic, Quizera, Jabang, Rea, Toy, and Vilsaint as subs. What did you think of the starting lineup on Saturday night?
Yeah, it was pretty much what I expected. You know, I mean, this stretch of games has been just completely insane. You know, just repeat it for those who have not been listening the last couple of weeks. It's 11 games in 36 days. I've never seen a stretch of games like this in such a short period of time. And if you wanted to give yourself a chance at the Canadian Championship with all the minutes that most of your starters have had, you didn't really have a choice. And to tell you the truth, Tony, I don't think CF Montreal would have done much better had they started those tired players who have been playing, night in and night out. So I think in the end, it's an investment. Resting those guys. Let's hope they can do the best they can, because it's going to be a tough game against Vancouver for sure.
Jeremy, the game was going to be difficult, like you said, with or without those players. We're talking about a Philadelphia team who, when they're firing on all cylinders, is a pretty good team in the MLS, number one. Number two, a Philadelphia team you would think that had a pretty long memory, because they came to Montreal early on in the season, a game at the Olympic Stadium. They were up 2-1, down a man in stoppage time, and CF Montreal scored a couple of goals, so they had revenge on their minds. Number three, you're talking about a tired CF Montreal team, like you said, so many games in such a short amount of time. And number four, the right decision was taken by starting a B lineup, because they are taking this Canadian Championship very seriously this year. They're taking this final very seriously. They're trying to put everything in their favor. You and I have voiced our opinions over the past couple of years, how important this competition is. And some years, they haven't taken it as seriously as they should have, in our opinions. So you know what? I have no problem with the starting lineup. I may have a little bit of a problem with, a player or two that I thought should have gone in that didn't, but maybe that's another story.
Yeah. So listen, they started the game with the players that they had, and to my surprise, they go into the locker room 2-0, down 2-0. But I saw some interesting things, I got to say. And you know what? This game was there also for the coach to get some information about certain players that hadn't played much, and to see who's ready to give you something possibly on Wednesday night against Vancouver, but also going on in the future. And I thought we saw some interesting things from Hamdi, who hasn't played much this year, but he was able to get some balls through to some of his teammates up front. They were not able to complete those plays. Sanusi Ibrahim, Lassi Lapalainen, and company. But there's this huge question mark right
Jeremy,
now.
Recently, if I can, Hamdi's impressed me more than Duke recently.
You know what? I haven't found him that bad. Every time he comes out there, he shows us a little something. I mean, it's nothing to write home about. But as you just mentioned, Duke right now is gassed. We know he missed 2 games because of a little injury. I'm sure he's not 100%. He was not used to this workload in Miami. So it's
Correct.
a lot for him to take on right now. I think Duke is your solution long term, but I think right now the guy needs a little bit of a break. I was actually surprised he started in this game, to tell you the truth. I was expecting maybe Matko to get a start or maybe even Sean Rea, but they decided to go with Duke. They pulled him out, though, after 45 minutes. Was it to conserve him for the game against Vancouver, or was it because the coach was not satisfied with what he saw? The coach did say that some of the substitutions made at halftime were because players were not giving what he expected from them. So He's got a real head scratcher here in the middle of the park for this next game.
So Jeremy, I'm going to say this, all right, to show you some balance here, which I think I do very well. Some others might disagree, but anyway, that's their problem. It's not mine. Here's the deal. I agree with the coach with his starting lineup. I have no problem. I would have gone with the same strategy. I have no problem. Like you said, it was an investment. I mean, they probably, crossed their fingers and prayed for a miracle, but they knew with the type of team that they started, the players they started, and who they were going up against, they figured more likely than not they were going to lose the game. But like you said, it's an investment towards the Canadian Championship final. I have no problem with all of that.
Okay.
I didn't want to talk about this particular player because it seems like I'm the only one in the city who is. But you just said something, and now you open the door, and I'm going to walk right through it. We had a chance to get information on players who don't normally play a lot in this game. So can you tell me why Vilsain did not get in a game where you were going to play players that were your B lineup, in a game where you were going to play players where you needed to get some information on some of them? Can you begin to explain to me why this kid did not get a minute?
I don't know. I don't know. I even thought there was a possibility for him to get a start in this game. If you're going to go in that direction, then, let him start. Let him play, 60 minutes. Let's see what he's got in his legs. Because right now, we still fail to have significant information on the kid to know exactly when and where we can use him.
But I can even understand that he didn't start because Sanusi's coming off his best MLS game ever. Do you understand? So the message to Sanusi would have been, you're coming off your best game. I don't play you. Now, could you have gone with 2 players up top, Vilsain, Sanusi? Yes, that's another story. Yeah. But I'm okay that he didn't start. I'm okay, right? Just to show you. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, it just seems to me the coach is not the president of his fan club, of Vilsain's. And, before you're not the president of someone's fan club, but can you give them a chance, but a real chance? Like,
Tony, I'm going to,
the treatment.
Yeah.
Like, he's being treated like a 17-year-old kid who, like, you should be grateful that you're there. Like, am I the only one who's getting this read or what? Or
no, but you know what the interesting thing is, Tony, is, we understand, and the coach said after this game that he's still searching for that number 10. Right now, I think he's still scratching his head and wondering, who is my starting number 10 against Vancouver? He even told us yesterday morning after practice or before practice that he's considering going without a 10 and playing a defensive style of game against Vancouver and, just hoping for opportunities on turnovers. So he's considering not playing with a number 10. He's also considering maybe starting three strikers without a 10. I don't think that's going to happen. But just to tell you. So I asked him, I said, listen, Vilsain has told us more than once that he was developed as a player as a number 10. So I understand he doesn't have maybe the physical attributes that you would normally associate with a number 10, but he was brought up as a number 10. So So I said to the coach, I understand you're not going to throw him out there in a championship game and say, hey, you're our number 10. Let's try to win this game. But at the same time, had he started him as a number 10 in this game, for example, well, you'd have a little bit more information on, can he actually play this position? Can he be an option at this position going forward? So we don't have that information. And the coach said, there's no plans in giving him a shot at a number 10 position. I don't know.
God forbid.
I don't know if it's because he doesn't see him physically as that type of player, or
but
I don't know why. But
hold on a second. Okay, so let's just say he's big for a number 10, right? Because he's 6'3" and he's $186 or $187 or whatever. Okay,
he's physically a little bit more like Kone, which is not exactly a number 10, but he could still play in the middle of the park. You carry the ball and
first of all, and I know that years ago has nothing to do with now. I know all that, but I can tell you, like, this kid can play any position, right? He can play any position, right? I mean, I saw his team win a tournament. He was playing in goal. He was playing as a goalkeeper. This is a true story. Okay. So he can play striker. He can play 10. He can play left. He can play right. He can play a wing back. I've never seen him play. He can play as a back. He can even play as a, I'm not sure he's physical enough to be a center. He can play as a 6. He can play as an 8. But anyway, long story short, I find it unfortunate that it's immediately dismissed without a sample size. I mean, because when the coach says, no, forget about it. I don't see him as a 10. Well, we've seen how many 10s have we seen this year? Hamdi, Rhea, Duke, and Miljevic.
We've even seen Choinière play 10, actually.
So we've seen Choinière. So we've seen 5 10s. Okay.
Yep.
Some good performances, some not so good, some average, sometimes even better than good. But the fact remains that midway through the season, there's no one that's taken that opportunity. There's no one that's taken it and run with it. We know that already.
Yep.
So what do you have to lose?
No.
What do you have to lose? Are you worried that he's going to look good as a 10? Is that what we're worried about? That he'll actually look better?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I was a little bit surprised that he answered that quickly, that there was no plans on giving him a shot at that position. I don't really know why, but now the reality is, Tony, we have a game.
Everyone told me Lassiter's not a wingback. Everybody told me that.
Yeah, but Lassiter has experience, right? He's a little bit more experienced.
Yes, I understand that.
Transitioning from a position to the other might be a little easier.
Jeremy, experience. I mean, this is, with all due respect, I very much enjoy watching the games in this league. It's not Serie A or La Liga here that we're talking about the experience. You realize that, eh? You realize that tactically the league is y a des croûtes à manger là. You realize that, eh? That this is not it's not the best league in the world. Like some CPL teams give some MLS teams trouble.
Listen, I'm gonna make a little parenthèse here. If they win on Wednesday night against Vancouver and are able to bring in, and we're going to talk about that game, they're able to bring back the trophy, they can actually use Leagues Cup in a couple of weeks to experiment on some of those players, because there's only one one reason why you're playing Leagues Cup. It's to win and to get into the Champions League. But if you're already in the Champions League, then there's no incentive. There's no financial incentive for players or teams or whatever. So, or very little. So you may want to use those games and say, you know what, we're going to test out some players here, because our objective is not necessarily to win it, because we're already in the Champions League. But anyways, that being said, now you're playing a game, okay, and you have to make a choice. So your choices are the 4 guys we named to play as 10s, or not play any 10s. And that's where I want to hear what you think, because this is a game
I wouldn't be surprised if they go 5-4-1. Now that you're telling me that the coach said that he might play without 10s, and we might see him sit back, low block, defend, and counter, I wouldn't be surprised if you go 5-4-1 at that point. So basically, what it would look like is like you still have your 3 center backs, but now your wing backs are playing fullback, and they're not going up. Well, they can still go up, obviously, but you defend with 5 in the back, 4 in front of them, 1 up top. You basically put 10 players behind the ball, your keeper, obviously, and your back line of 5 and the 4 in front of them. And maybe you skip a couple of lines every now and then. You skip a line every now and then. You throw a couple of long balls up top to a player that maybe might want to wear down. I would imagine Ofor will start the game to try and wear down a Vancouver back line. And, I wouldn't be surprised if they go a 5-4-1, Jeremy, because...
Okay, but who are you using in the middle? So Wanyama and Choinière are givens. All right. Who else?
Wanyama and Choinière are givens.
Yep.
And you use Lassiter or Lapalainen.
Lassiter's going to play on the left. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's a big question mark. It's a big question mark because you don't have anybody that you say, you can talk. Maybe Saliba had a good start, but now is he good enough to play in a final? I don't know.
Would you put Wanyama with Saliba next to him and then put Choinière on the right so that Choinière and Wanyama can insulate Saliba a little bit? Speaking of which, what did you think of Saliba's performance on Saturday or any other player? Is there any player who played on Saturday in what was a B lineup to start the game that you think can play, should play on Wednesday, or at the very least showed you something?
Yeah, I think Hamdi is the guy that I would use. And it's strange to say that because we're talking about a guy here who couldn't get a sniff at getting on the field early in the season. And now these last couple of games, he's gotten some minutes. And all of a sudden, we're realizing that at this moment, he's probably better than the 3 others.
You want to know why? Freshness. He's fresh compared to everybody else.
But, and you know what?
By default.
Okay, so here's the thing. So I think Sean Rea, I think it would be unfair to put him in the position and say, Sean, you're our number 10. Go get us this win. It's not his time yet. Matko Milevich, we can say what we want. I was not in agreement with the way that they managed him, but at the same time, he's not showing me anything. This guy's not showing me that he can be a difference maker on the field at this time. So, okay. Then you have Hamdi and you have Duke. And I think, Tony, if there's one thing that I don't really necessarily agree with the way it was managed, I think that if Duke and Hamdi's minutes were managed better, sorry, it's not correct English, but had they shared those minutes more adequately, I think Duke wouldn't be as tired right now. And I think Hamdi would have more repetitions in him and would be even better than he is right now. And I think right now you'd have those 2 options. Unfortunately, you have one guy who's burnt out and you have another guy who just hasn't played much. But I think those 2 guys at the end of the day are the guys that give you the best chance of getting something done in Vancouver. That being said, Tony, if you
what do you think of Saliba? What did you think of Saliba? Because everyone had an opinion on social media on Saturday night.
I thought he was okay. It's one step at a time. I think is in the first or second goal where the ball is coming to him in the box. He has a clear opportunity to cut it off. He plays it on his wrong foot and loses the possession of it.
That's the second goal, if I can. But on the first goal, he moves out of the shooting lane. So he's at the top. I believe he's near the top of the box or just inside. But as the shot is taking place, he jumps out of the way for Pantemis to see it, and it's the wrong play. So there's some responsibility there on his part for goal number 1 against and goal number 2. Having said that, I thought as the game went on, he got better, but I don't think the coach is going to trust him in such a big game, considering there's some responsibility in the first and second goal against, like I said.
So listen, you're going into this game in Philadelphia where you want to give this guy some minutes, and there's going to be mistakes. That's normal, growing pain, but it's part of it.
Problem. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it either. We talked about it last week. We both agreed that this was the right decision to give these guys minutes, and slowly but surely he'll get to where we want him to be. But just to get back at the discussion we were having earlier, you were talking about playing maybe a 4-5-1, a 5-4-1. If you go into Vancouver thinking that you can open up the game and beat them at home, forget about it, Tony. I'm telling you right away, forget about it. Okay, this strategy of maybe sitting back and waiting for Vancouver might actually work. I know they're going to try to bombard you at the beginning of the game, but if you can weather the storm for, let's say, a half hour in Vancouver, they've had games where they've had difficulties because teams just sat back against them. It is a strategy that
early on in the season, in the last little while at home, they're in a good moment, like you just said.
They're unbeatable. They're unbeatable. They have had one loss at home all season long. It was in the home opener. After that, they've either won or tied every single other game. So they're almost unbeatable at home. Can you try to push this game to a potential to PKs? Just to let people know, there's no overtime on Wednesday night in Vancouver. If they're tied after 90 minutes, they will go to PKs, and we'll talk about that probability in a couple of minutes. But can you try to push this game as far as you can at a 0-0 score and possibly get yourself into a PK position? Maybe. But Vancouver's got some weapons up top. But, they have broken it and busted it open on a few occasions. They scored 5 against Montreal. They scored 6 against Houston. But in a lot of the other games, they've struggled to score goals also. So you may want to exploit that.
Jeremy, big game for Jonathan Sirois, who obviously has taken the ball and has run with it after James Pantemis went down with an injury. Game 1 in Florida versus Inter Miami. We saw Pantemis last game. It was a very difficult situation for him back after 11 weeks off and playing, with a B lineup versus a pretty hungry opponent. But unfortunately for him, he would have probably had to pull off a couple of miracles, which he did not. But it's a big game for Jonathan Sirois, who's had some really good moments in MLS action, and he can cement his status with a huge performance in Vancouver.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, Tony. I mean, if he is able to go there and shut down Vancouver and make some key stops and give Montreal a chance to win, and if they raise the cup, I mean, boy, oh boy, it's going to be tough for James to get back into this lineup because right now he has lost his number 1 position. It's unfortunate to say that a player loses his position due to injuries, but this is a circumstance where it's hard to go against what the coach has decided to do right now because he's got one guy who's just so hot and he's also progressed since the beginning of the season. So you got to give him this possibility of picking up this trophy in Vancouver. Let's hope that James can get in on another occasion at some other period in time. But it's really tough on James because we knew he's going in there with a B club in front of him. The possibilities and the chances of them coming out of that game with a win were, slim to none. Yeah. So it's tough. It's I wouldn't want to be in his shoes right now.
Jeremy, I can't wait to watch this Canadian Championship final on Wednesday night. And for those
let me just tell you what to expect from Vancouver.
Yeah.
Okay. So Vancouver is the type of team, they play a system that most teams in the MLS don't play. They play a 4-3-2-1. On occasion, they flip it up and they play 4-3-1-2. But most of the time, it's 4-3-2-1, what we call the Christmas tree formation. It's a triangle, okay?
Yeah.
So Vanni Sartini, doesn't really believe a team can consistently score goals, coming from the wings. So they will give you the sides. So the wingers will have time and space to work, but they will not give you the middle. They pack up the middle of the park. It's extremely difficult to get in there. So Montreal's going to have to think strategically that they want to use their wingers a lot. Takaoka is a keeper that's extremely strong on crosses in the air. If you cross balls in the air, chances are 9 times out of 10 he's going to catch those balls. He's going to intercept those balls. So the crosses need to come from the ground. They have a lot of weapons up top. Julian Gressel, for me, is the real captain of the Vancouver Whitecaps.
He's a leader.
He's a leader. He's an absolute leader. He will and can shoot from anywhere, even from distance, without warning, and he has a good shot. You always, when he has the ball, you always got to think to yourself, he might be shooting at any moment. Gold in the middle of the park is their big, player.
He's their number 10. He's their number 10. Ryan Gold's a fantastic player.
So 10, he makes $2.4 million a year. But Tony, if you can keep him away from the box, he tends to get lost in the middle of the park. He hasn't contributed the way the Whitecaps would have hoped that he would have contributed by now. The statistics are just not there at this moment. So if you do a good job of boxing him out, you can maybe get away with the dangers that he could create.
I would imagine he's going to be Wanyama's responsibility.
Yeah, most probably. But you know what? Wanyama is not going to be able to keep up with his speed and his capability of running around.
So then maybe they're going to give the responsibility to Choinière.
Yeah, exactly. You need somebody that can stay, in his shorts and make sure he doesn't get freed up. Cordova is their big signature in the middle of the winter. Unfortunately, he's not as dangerous as he was when he was with Real Salt Lake. He's just hasn't found his groove with this team. But he is, he's a Romel Kyoto type player. So he is extremely dangerous. He just hasn't, gotten going yet. The other guy you have to watch out for, Simon Betcher. Betcher, the coach likes to bring him in the second half. He is extremely dynamic. He will come into the park, and that the game is going to change at that moment. He will make runs one after the other, and they will give him the ball. And he's always looking to score.
Young striker drafted out of, I think, a university in St. Louis a couple of years ago in the MLS draft. And I believe earlier in the season, I think he had a record for the fastest 4 goals scored in the MLS. He was on fire.
Very dangerous player.
Nose for net.
Nose for the net. When he comes in against tired legs, he's very dangerous. He's always in the box. He will cause all kinds of problems for them. If they need a goal late in the game, they will bring him in. So those are the things to look out for against Vancouver. It's not going to be easy, Tony. I mean, let's say the truth. They're going into this game as, pretty heavy underdogs, according to me.
But you know what? The fact they lost 5-0 at the beginning of the season, they too will have revenge on their mind. CF Montreal. You know what? I think it's going to make for an amazing game. I look forward to watching it.
Everybody's traveling, Tony. Yeah. Samuel Piet is not ready to go. He'll travel. Gabriel Jauvet will be with the team. The only guy not traveling is Kyoto because he's rehabbing in Honduras, if I'm not mistaken. So everybody's going to be there. So if they lift this trophy, everybody's going to, be able to share in the.
Yeah. Look forward to watching and look forward to talking about it maybe on Thursday. Same time, same place. Okay. You can check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. And follow us on Twitter at SickPodCFMTL. I'm Marinaro, Jeremy Filosa, also co-host of EMFC Radio with Gavino Di Falco. Have a great day, everyone. Bring home that Canadian championship.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.